In today's video, I'm going to show you how to build this entire app from beginning to end. And we can go ahead and look at these articles. So this is the most viewed article and the number of views here, top featured articles, recently updated and newest this month. But it's essentially a community knowledge hub. And you can use this for anything. Most of the topics are HR focuses for demonstration purposes, but you could use this for Power Apps community, your Power BI community, your project management community, and you can build all these different articles. Now we've got 9 views here. If I click this, we can see this article here, and we can see the title here, who wrote it, and then we can see down here the article and any attachments if there are any. We have the ability to like this, and in this case I've already liked this. If we come back over here, we can see that that view was recorded here. Now same thing if I come over here and we take a look at this one, I can like this one clicking here, and we can see that that has been liked now, and it'll record that information as part of this. Or we could go over here and type in the box and search something. If we just hit the search button, we'll get all of the articles here. And then we can kind of further filter things down here by looking for things as well. So if we type in ad, we'll get the addressing area here. So everything is working correctly here. And if we come back over here, again, we can take a look at all of these different articles. Or if we go to the admin area here, we can take a look at article management here. And again, I can go ahead and filter down to just ones that are published, or I can filter to the submitted ones. In this case, you don't have any, or we can reset everything. And we've got an under review, or I could come up here and type in how, and it would show me everything that's got the word how inside of the title here. And we can go ahead again and reset everything. Now, if we click on this as an admin, we can take a look at this, and we can go down here and we can change the article status for processing these things, or make these featured articles for landing on our primary page over there. Let's go ahead and hit the back button here. And then we've also got the article review option, so we can actually just look at the ones that are pending review and come over here for managing this. And then we got our permission center. And again, I show you how to create all of this as part of this app, but we could go through and modify permissions, or we could go ahead and add a permission for somebody here as well. And if we come back and we hit the back button here, and we can also obviously submit an article. So a very full featured app, a very long video. It had a little over 2.5 hours. So yes, it is a very long video, but we go through a lot as part of building this app. So hopefully you find this content helpful. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. It really does help the channel grow. And if you like seeing this kind of build stuff, hit the like and subscribe before you watch the video so that you don't forget to do that, especially since this is a long video. All right, let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, so we have our solution. I called it the Community Knowledge Hub. Let's go ahead and start creating our tables. So we'll go ahead and create our article table to begin. And we'll go ahead and enable attachments for this one. Now you could create an attachments table and use that. It's a little bit easier to work with the form if you enable attachments and just use the out-of-the-box functionality. You could create a separate table and still use that attachment control, but it doesn't allow for all the same level of functionality that you get just using the attachments table. Let's go ahead and hit the advanced here. And let's go ahead and turn on our quick create. If we ever wanted to do a model-driven app, we'll make sure to use this in the future. And let's go ahead and save this. All right, let's go ahead and adjust our columns here. So we don't need any of these. And we're gonna go ahead and show our primary name. So we'll add that in there. And let's go ahead and edit this. And again, we're gonna just call this our title field. Let's go ahead and take a look at the advanced here. 850 characters for titles, a little long. We might want to consider reducing this. I think for our purposes, we'll just put it at 200 characters. I think that works well for this. And then I typically turn on sortable, and let's hit save. All right, let's go ahead and add another one. This is going to be our summary. And we'll go ahead and do this as a multi-lines of text, plain text. And then we'll make it searchable. It doesn't really matter. And for this one, since it's a summary, we don't need it to be a lot of characters. We're just going to set it at 300 for now. We can always increase this if we want to later on. And let's go ahead and hit save. All right, so we've got that field. Let's go ahead and now we want the body of our article. And for this, let's go ahead and make it a rich text field. And we'll go ahead and make this sortable. Now, for a rich text field, we want this to be quite a bit higher. Let's go ahead and just go to, say, 40,000. That's quite a bit of characters. Articles could be pretty long, so you want to make sure you give them enough room to write out all the content that they want to put into the article. I think 40,000 is probably a good number. Let's go ahead and just increase it to 400,000, and we can see that we can do that. And if we go to 4 million, we reach the limit here, so we can only have it be essentially a little over 1 million, and then we've got our max. So if you're looking for the max, this is the way you would achieve that. I don't think we need that many characters. Again, we're just going to go with 40,000. I think that's probably more than enough for this article. And let's go ahead and save. And then we want to have an article status. So let's go ahead and put that in there. And for this, we're going to do a choice. And let's go ahead and create a new choice here. Article status choice. And we're going to have the option of submitted, under review, approved, published, and maybe archived. And let's hit save. All right, so then we go ahead and find our choice that we just created. So we have article status choice. And for our default choice, let's go ahead and leave this blank for right now. All right, let's go ahead and save. We want to keep track of approvals. So let's go ahead and do approved by, and this will be a lookup, and we're going to use our users table for this. So let's hit save. And let's go ahead and have our approved on, and this will be our date time. And let's go ahead and save. And let's go ahead and add a featured. And this is just going to be a yes or no. And this will allow us to identify articles that we want to feature in some way. We may not actually use this feature, but at least we'll have the ability to do it. We already have this function kind of pre-designed into the system. Let's go ahead and save. All right, that's a pretty good start. Let's go ahead and go back to our tables here. All right, and since we did a lookup, the users table was automatically added to our solution. Let's go ahead and add another table. And this one's going to be our tag. And for this, let's go ahead and make it an organization table. It's not going to matter which users create this. And then I always turn this on also. Let's go ahead and save. All right, so we've got our name. Let's go ahead and change the name of this. This is going to be our tag. Now, we probably don't need it to be 850 characters, so we'll go ahead and reduce this to, say, 150. And let's go ahead and save. All right. Now let's go ahead and add another column, and this is going to be our sort order. We may not need this, but it's always a good thing to have a sort order column. That way you can adjust the order if you need to. And let's go ahead. We don't need this to be searchable. And our lowest number is going to be 0, and it doesn't really matter about the maximum number. And we'll go ahead and make this sortable. And that looks good. Let's go ahead and hit save. And then we'll edit this. Now let's go ahead and add a couple of options in here, and we're going to focus on doing an HR version of this community knowledge hub. So a lot of this is going to be applicable to multiple organizations out there. You could use this for pretty much any design that you want, but again, everybody's got HR of some sort, so we're going to focus on that for this one. And maybe what we're going to do is awards and recognition. And I'm going to go ahead and add a few other options on here so we've got some tags that we can use once we get this thing built. All right, that looks good. So I added a couple of options in here. Now let's go ahead and go back, and we'll go ahead and add one more table in here. So let's go back to our table options. Now this is going to be our topics. And again, we don't need this one to be user or team. And let's go ahead and leverage quick create and save. All right, let's go ahead and hide all of these and just add our name primary. And this is going to be our topics. So we'll go ahead and change this. And again, we'll go ahead and change this. We'll set this at maybe 150. I think that's probably fine. And let's go ahead and add another field here. And we'll call this the topic description. And this will be a multi-line of text. But we don't need it to be anywhere near 2,000 characters. We'll just set this for maybe 300. I think will probably be sufficient for this. We can always increase this if we need to later on. And let's go ahead and save. And let's go ahead and add the sort order again. So we'll add that back in here. And that will be a number field, whole number. And we'll go ahead and set minimum to 0. Doesn't really matter about the maximum. And let's go ahead and save this. Now, one other thing we could have done with our tags, and I might still go back and do this, but we can say whether it's active or not. And this will just be a choice column for us. And the default will be yes. We want it to be defaulted to yes for active. But this would allow us to control both our tags and our topics should we want to exclude them if they're not active. So that might be a good addition also to the tag table. All right, let's go ahead and edit this. And then we'll add a couple in here to start off with. All right, there we go. Now we have our topics and descriptions, and we've got our sort order so we can change the order if we need to. And that's a good starting point. Let's go back again. All right, let's go ahead and modify our article table now. And let's go ahead and add our topic, and that'll be a lookup to our topic table. And hit save. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our relationships here. We want to have a new relationship of many to many for our tags, because we're going to have an article and it's going to have many tags for each of the different articles. So one of the ways we can do this is using a many to many relationship. And by setting this up, essentially what we're going to be able to do is select multiple tags for each of these articles. You can't do this with a choice column, so a many to many works really great for this particular type of a setup. Let's go ahead and hit the done here. And now we can see that we've got an article to tag many to many relationship here. All right, that's looking good. Let's go ahead and go back to our tables, and we're going to create another table. And for this one, this is going to be our article view. And essentially what we're going to do is record when somebody actually views the article. Let's go ahead and hit save. And let's go ahead and adjust this again. We just want our primary name here. So we'll view that. And for this, we're not going to make it required because we may not actually use this. So let's go ahead and make that optional. And we'll leave it as name for right now. Now let's go ahead and add our user. So we maybe want to keep track of what user views the article. So this would be a lookup to our users table. And let's go save that. And then we want to have our article. So this would be the article that was viewed. And again, this would be a lookup to our article table. And let's go ahead and hit save. Now we could add other columns in here should we want to track metadata in some other way, but really we have kind of what we needed. So we're going to add our created on, and that'll give us our what date and time essentially the user viewed it. So I think that's good for our view. Let's go ahead and create another table. And this is going to be our liked articles. And again, this would be just the organization, and we'll hit save. Now this table is going to record when somebody likes an article, so we can keep track of how many times an article has been liked. And again, we'll go ahead and remove all this, add this. We may not use this, but let's go ahead and add again our user. And again, this will just be a lookup to the users table. And then we'll add our article column. And this again will be a lookup to our article table. Now let's hit save. And again, may as well add our created on here so we have the date timestamp. All right, let's go back to tables. And let's go ahead and add another one. And this is going to be our search history table. And again, we'll just make this organization and hit save. And for this, let's go ahead and remove all this. We'll keep our name primary in here. Now for this one, what we're going to call this one is going to be the actual searched text. And we'll go ahead and keep that there. I think that's good. And hit save. And then we'll go ahead and add our user. Again, I look up to our users table and hit save. Now, what we can use this for is identifying what are people searching for frequently and how frequently they're searching for it. We might want to put this into AI, and then AI can kind of summarize it a little bit for us. But essentially, what are people actually typing in the search box? And then let's go ahead and Again, we'll probably put our created on, probably be helpful as well. And I think that looks good. I think we've got a good starting point for our table structure. We might come back and make some changes as we get to building things. But let's go ahead and go to our app and create our app. So we're going to create a Canvas app. And we'll call this our Community Knowledge Hub. And we'll hit create. And let's go ahead and adjust our settings. So let's go to updates. And we're going to go ahead and turn on our modern controls and themes. And that's probably it for right now. And then we'll come over here to our themes. And again, we'll create our theme. And then it'll be, again, Arial's my kind of go-to. And then we've got 07058. And hit create. And that's kind of my go-to theme and color for most of my apps that I build on this channel. All right, let's go ahead and hide our themes. We don't need that anymore. And let's go to our data sources and add data. So we'll find our article and we'll add articles. All right, now I've got all of our data added in here. Let's go back to our screen views. And we're not going to worry about the first screen yet. Let's go ahead and create another screen. And it'll just be a blank screen for this one. Now let's go ahead and get rid of that. And we'll call this one the main screen. And then this one will be our article screen. All right, let's go ahead and add a container. And for this one, we'll go ahead and do a horizontal container. Now what we're going to do is just create our header for the page. So let's go ahead and put this up at the top. And we'll have our width be parent.width. And we'll just set this to 42 for right now. We don't need a border. Let's go ahead and set this to 0. All right, now let's go ahead and add another container. And this will just be a horizontal container. Let's go ahead and turn off flexible width. And we're going to set our width to 42. And go back to this one. Let's go ahead and turn off these paddings so we fill up our entire container. And let's go ahead and add an image. This is going to be our app logo. And for this, let's just do parent.height. And then for our width, it's going to be parent.height also. So we'll keep it where. And for our image, let's go ahead and upload an image here. All right, so now we've got our image. Now let's change our padding on this container. So we maximize this. Now what we can do is we can increase this. So we can go to, let's say 82 and see what double that looks like. And then our image will be 82. Now we just got to adjust our container. And for this, we'll do container1.height. And let's come down here and take a look at our height value and set that the same. All right. Now this is going to be our container header article screen. And this will be our header logo article screen and a logo. All right. So I've got that container taken care of. We can go ahead and add a container here for our title for this screen, or maybe the title for the app. I'm not sure exactly yet how we're going to set this up, but let's go ahead and add another container. And again, it'll be a horizontal container. Now we'll go ahead and change this one. Again, we're going to use a fixed width here. And for right now, we'll just set this to 800. I think that's probably good. And again, this is going to be our title. So let's go ahead and add a text field in here. And again, we're going to get rid of our padding. And then we'll make this kind of fill the entire container. So we'll say parent.height. And we'll do parent.width. That way it fills our space. Now let's go ahead and change the vertical to the middle. And then we'll make this like 28 and start there, see how that looks. And we'll go ahead and put this as bold. And let's go ahead and just call this Community Knowledge Hub for right now. That'll work for a start point. All right, so we'll call this our label header articles. And this will be our container text article screen. Now we might want to have some buttons up here, so let's go ahead and insert another container. And again, it'll be horizontal container. Let's turn off this, and we'll go ahead and just make this again that way. I think I forgot to do that here, so let's go ahead and do that also, just to make sure we got squared up everything. And we can turn this off. 500 is probably good. This is going to be for our buttons, so let's call that container header buttons article screen. Yep, that looks good. I don't currently need any buttons up here right now, but this might be where we put the back buttons or some other buttons relevant for this page. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this, and we're going to insert another container. And this one we will just fill the entire space here. Now let's go ahead and add an image. And we'll go ahead and add a text. All right, now let's change the order. We want the image to be over here, and then we're going to have our label username article screen. And then this will be our image user article screen. And for this one, we're going to put everything on the right. So put this over here. And let's go ahead and put a gap of 20 between everything. All right, let's go ahead and change this. And we'll go ahead and make the height. That height. And then we'll go ahead and make the width. Parent.width minus image user dot width. And then we'll subtract our gap. There we go. And for this, let's go ahead and make this 18, maybe 22, and see what that looks like. All right. Now we've got a little bit of our container paddings causing some issues, so let's go ahead and get rid of this. Now we can call this our container header user article screen. And again, we'll put this in the center. Now we've got wrap turned on, looks good for that. And our image, go ahead and set that to parent.height. And then the same for our height. All right, that looks pretty good like that. And let's go ahead and change our container a little bit here. All right, I think that looks pretty good for a start point. Maybe we'll put a little bit of a gap here to the left. So we'll put a left of maybe 10. And I think we'll probably do the same thing here. So for this container, we'll go ahead and add padding on the left of 10. And then we'll go ahead and decrease this by 30. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good there. We might want to have a little bit of standoff from the edge of the screen, but I think we'll keep it like this for right now. All right, let's get rid of this. Yeah, that's looking pretty good there. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our on start here. And again, I'm just going to paste in what I normally use. And again, all we're doing is we're getting the user information from the user function here. And I've got the full user information right here, but most of that is contained in these three here. This is just kind of my fallback if I need something that isn't one of these three. 99% of the time, I don't need this. It's really just these three things here that we're going to pull in. But now we're going to run our on start, and we've got access to this. And then we can come over here, and for our text, we're going to set that to username. And then we're going to do over here is kind of the same thing. We're going to set our image to the user image. And there we go. And if we look at our screen, that's essentially what we're looking at now. Now for our container, let's go ahead and set the background color for this. And we'll go with this color and see how that looks. And that's not too bad. Then we go a little bit lighter. And let's go ahead and change this up a little bit. We want this to be probably over on the end. And let's go ahead and make it bold. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good there for the background. Now for our background on our screen, let's go ahead and change this right away too. So we'll go with F5. All right, I think that's looking pretty good as a starting point. We got plenty of space here for our name. I think probably too much space. It's definitely never going to wrap, I don't think, for most names. And we probably got way more space here for our buttons than we need. But yeah, I think that's a good start. And again, this would normally be the user image, whatever that happens to be. So I think that's not too bad for a start. I think I might go ahead and change this a little bit. So let's go ahead and parent that with -5. And same thing here. And let's go ahead and select our container here. And I think we're going to put a 5 on the right and 5 around on our tops and bottoms. Give a little bit of a standoff from the edge of that. Maybe we try 10. Maybe it's going to be 10 all around. And then this will be 10 here. And 10. All right, so we got a little bit of a gap there. Now again, it's typically going to be whatever the user logo is. We could also make this round if we wanted to, but I think that's looking pretty good just like that. All right, so now we've got this done. That's just our header. Let's go ahead and copy this and put that over here. All right, there we go. So now we've got our headers on both pages. Let's go back to our article screen. Actually, let's fix this right away. So we're going to do the same background color here. And again, that would be F5, just like that. There, gives a little bit of color to the screen. And let's go ahead and add a container. So we'll go up here, find another container. And this one's going to be a vertical container. And for this one, it'll be an X of 0. And then our Y is going to be container header article screen dot Y. And then we'll do plus dot height. All right, and then let's go ahead and make the width of this dot width. And we'll go ahead and do the height of parent dot height minus our container header article. Perfect. And let's go ahead and move this down. This is going to be our container article objects for the article screen. Now let's go ahead and add a container here. That'll be a horizontal container. And we'll go ahead and say that this is 42. Put that on the top there. Let's get rid of our standoffs here. We don't need this. And let's go do the same thing here. And again, we don't need this. Might turn that on here once we get a little bit more of it built. But for right now, I think that's probably what we need. Now this is going to be for our buttons. Now let's go ahead and add another container. And this is going to be for our form. Article screen. And the buttons might go on the bottom or the top. I'm not sure yet. Let's go ahead and build this first. We'll add our form here. And that'll be for our articles. And to start, let's go ahead and we'll make this into new view. And all right, so we don't necessarily need this. All right, I think that's looking pretty good. All right, let's go ahead and add some other stuff here. So let's see, what do we got? We have our topic, I think it looks like we got most everything else here. So I think we're doing pretty good. Oh, we gotta have our attachments. All right, let's do that. All right, so let's get the order of these down now. So we've got our attachments will be last. We'll do the title first. Then the person will select the topic, add the summary here. Then we've got the body, article status, and attachments. Now let's go ahead and change this up a little bit. So we want to maximize our screen. And let's go ahead and change this and make that white. And the same thing for the rest of them. All right, that's looking pretty good now. Now let's go ahead and change our setup a little bit. I want these to fill the form, I think. And our topics doesn't necessarily need to be too large, but we do want to have this to be a little bit better. So let's go with topic data card 1 dot width. And do parent dot width minus this. So it'll fill up the rest of the space. On the body, we want to definitely fill out as much space as possible. So let's go ahead and do parent.width. And we want the same thing for the attachments. Now we still have to address our tags. So we're going to have tags on here as well. And if we look at our article status, we've got submitted, under review, or approved. I think what we want to have happen is whenever it's submitted, we want it to be submitted under review and approved, published, and archived. I think that's going to be through the review process. They'll set the status based off what's going on with the article after it's been submitted. So we're going to set the standard outcome of this. So you have to unlock this quick. And what we're going to do is go up to the update option here. And a lot of times I keep this as an option to fall back on. So we'll code that out. And then we're going to go ahead and say article status choice dot submitted. So every time they submit it, it's going to be in the status of submitted, no matter what it was before. And then we can probably just make this one not visible. So we'll go back to our visibility setting here and change that to false. Okay, so I think that's a good start. Now for required fields, we do want these to be mostly required fields. So let's go ahead and first let's go ahead and change this. So let's be our article. And we'll select our title, body. And if you hold the shift key down while you're selecting these, you can select the other cards here. And attachments is probably not going to be a required field. So we'll go back over here, unlock all of these, and we're going to make them all required. So then we can see that we got our asterisk that popped up for all of these fields. And for our find topic, let's go ahead and change that. And we'll say this is going to be select topic. All right, I think that's not bad there. Now let's go ahead and add a data card. So we'll come back over here and edit a field, and we'll add a data card. Now this is going to be for our tags. So let's go ahead and push this up here. And we'll go ahead and make this, let's see, this is a height of 70. Let's do the same. So we'll make that a height of 70. And then let's go ahead and we'll copy this, put this in here. And for our text, this is going to be tag. And then we'll go ahead and insert a combo box. Now, in this case, we're going to use the classic combo box. It gives us a little bit more functionality and features that make it a little bit easier to work with when you're talking about multi-select. So we're going to select the multi-select combo box here. And yeah, the format's going to be a little bit different, which is always fun trying to figure out the formatting for these things. But I think that will work a lot better for us. All right, let's go back down here. And we're going to call this the data card key 91. Doesn't matter, I guess. And this is going to be combo tags. And I'll call this our tag data card. All right. And let's change this to dot width is 48. That'll keep it consistent with how pretty much everything else is working. Now, trying to get all the formatting is fun, definitely. But let's go ahead, and this is going to be Arial. I think it's going to be around 12. Let's see. It's probably, we're trying to get it kind of as close as we can to this one over here. I think what's throwing it off is the height is still wrong here. And then our Y over here is 36, so we'll change that quick. All right, I think that's looking about the same. All right, I went through and adjusted a bunch of the settings here to get it a little bit closer to the other combo box here. And then also just went through and changed the color here a little bit and just went with white. I think that looks a little bit better. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some of our settings here. So we want select multiple to be true. And our tooltip will be select tags. And our accessibility label will be self.tooltip. All right, now that we've got that, we want to do our onChange property. And for our onChange, we want to go ahead and create a collection. So we're going to do a clear collect. We're going to call it selected tags. And it's going to be based on our combo box.selected items. And what that's going to do is every time we make a change, it's going to update our collection so we can use it to pass that information and actually create the many-to-many relationship. Now let's go down to our default selected items, and that's going to be our collection also. All right, that looks good. Let's go ahead and add a button in here right away. So let's get this out of the way. This will be our submit button, and we can add an icon. Maybe the save will look good there. And let's make it a little bit bigger here. So let's make this 62. Give ourselves a little bit more space. And then save 62. There we go. So it's a little bit bigger. All right, let's go ahead and put our on select here. So we submit form article, and that's good for now. Now let's take a look at our on success. Let's see. So on success, we want to set a variable. It'll just be CBL article. And it'll be form article dot last submit. And then we want to do edit form because we want the mode of the form to be editable after we hit the save button, or we could navigate them to another page if we want to. We can always change this in the future here. And then we want to clear collect our collection tags to remove. Tags to remove, and we want that to be based on our variable that we create, article tags. I did rename the table that I created to be article tags. There was another table that was already in there called tags, and it was going to cause some confusion for building this app. So just for simplicity, I renamed it to article tags. And we go ahead and close this. And really what we're doing now is, let's say they change this. We submit it the first time and there's 2 or 3 different things in there. And then while they're working on it, they say, well, I don't like those tags and I want to change it. We want to make sure we know what tags to remove. So we want to get all the original tags as part of this step. And then what we want to do is for all, and it's going to be our collection that we just created, tags to remove. And we want to unrelate them from our GBL article dot article tags and this record. And this is going to basically remove all of the tags and get ready for the updated combo box to be submitted. So we're going to do a for all. And this time we're going to do our combo box. What did we actually select? Selected items. And we're going to relate based off GBL article dot article tags this record. There we go. Then we'll just do a standard notification, and we'll say successfully submitted the article. And we'll say this is a notification type of success, and we'll do it for 3 seconds. All right, I think that's looking good for our on success. So we're setting GBL article as the last submit of the form, edit the form, clear collection tags to remove article tags, and then for all of the collection, we want to unrelate those. Basically remove everything that was already there. Even if there are overlaps, we want to start fresh and relate what was actually selected. And this is the cleanest and easiest way to do that. And then we're going to relate the new ones, whatever was selected. Maybe nothing changed, but we do want to do this every time. And then we want to do the notification here. All right, now let's take a look at our item property. And for our item, it'll be GBL article. Okay, I think we have that set up right now. All right, let's go ahead and make some other adjustments here. So for this one, we want a rich text. So we want to change this to a rich text editor. And we'll go ahead and copy some of our settings from here. So our Y value here, we'll go ahead and copy that, put that in here. And our width is, that width -48. And then our height for this one, let's go ahead and make this 100. Get a little bit bigger. And then we can take a look at this. We're going to copy the name here. And then we can delete this. And put that here. And then we'll go back over here. And instead of data code value 2.value, it's HTML text. All right, everything looking good there. Now for our summary here, this we set our maximum to 2000. So let's put our max length at 2000. Our title has a max of 200. So let's go ahead and set that. All right, and I think we're looking good there. Let's go ahead and make some small adjustments here. So we don't need this to be quite so wide. Let's go with, I don't know, 50. Let's see how that fits. We can read everything, so I think that's pretty good there. And if we want to, we can move our summary up. Now, we had put it on the same line, but then we added tags. So in order to make this work, it's got to be parent.width minus topic minus our tag data card .width. And then let's look at where our X and Y are here. So X is 1 and our Y is 1. And if we look at this one, we have an X of 0. We'll say 2. And a Y of 1. And then it'll put it on the same line as the other two. All right, I think that looks pretty good. Let's make sure that we didn't miss anything. So this is a normal field topic. We got that. We should have the tag, but let's go take a look at the properties quick. We have our item property. We have our searchability turned on. And we have our on change. Everything's looking pretty good here. So I think we're set up for this to be working correctly. We set our max length here. It's kind of the only thing we have to take a look at for this. It's multi-line text. I do like to change this to key press just to make sure that they can save right after they've made a change here, assuming that this was like the last thing that they did. And if we take a look at our body, that's looking pretty good. And let's take a look at this. We have a spell check turned on, accessibility label, and our default. So this is what shows up here. We do want to make a change here. So let's go and we're going to do an if form article.mode is equal to form mode.new or is blank and default. We want our text, our default text like this, or we want it to be, oops, or we want it to be parent.default. And we'll close this off. And all that's going to do is when we hit save, the text is going to be there after we've done that. So essentially that's the goal of this, is to make sure that the parent.default is always here and doesn't get blanked out. All right, I think we're ready to test this out. So let's go ahead and save, and let's go ahead and play. And I'm going to go ahead and put in some information here. All right, then we went through and added a bunch of body to this and filled out a couple different options here for how to process a temporary promotion. All right, let's go ahead and hit save. And what should happen is it should save. We should see our notification up here. And then we should again see this entire thing just the way that it is here. So let's go ahead and submit and see if it works. All right, so it says successfully submitted the article, and we can see everything, and everything appears to be working as expected. So that's a good test. Let's go ahead and back out of here. And now what we want to do is work on an interface so that the person that submits articles can interact with them afterwards. This is a great interface for viewing and editing and creating new articles, but now we need to create a way for the user to access the articles that they've created, or for the people that are going to be approving these to access the articles as well. It'll also give us a chance to test and make sure this actually populates correctly when selecting an article from the gallery, and just making sure that we actually did this save for the many-to-many. So we'll be able to test all of that with this next page that we need to create. So let's go ahead and collapse this down. All right, let's go ahead and duplicate this page. All right, so that's done. Let's go ahead and copy this, and then let's go to our search, paste that in there, and this will be author articles. And let's go ahead and replace all. And then we'll come back over here. All right. So this is our header. Let's move this up. And we can go ahead and collapse that down. And then we can take a look at this one. And we don't need our form, so we can delete that. And then we've got our container here. And we've got our buttons up here. Let's go ahead and add a gallery. And it'll be based on our articles. And we can go ahead and get rid of our image. And I always like to add modern control. So let's go ahead and insert a modern text control here. And that'll be right around here. And then we'll take a look at this one here and grab our font weight. So we'll copy this. And we're going to put that in here for our font weight. But it's going to be formatted a little bit different. So we want this to be our bold. And we want this to be regular. All right, so we can get rid of both of these. And I think we'll move this in to 10. And I think that spacing is probably fine like that. All right, so we've got to, well, we need a gallery heading as well. So let's go ahead and change this first. And we'll call this articles. This will be our text title. And we need another container. So let's insert a container, horizontal container. And we'll turn this off, make that, let's go with 32. Turn this off. And let's go ahead and move this up here. And then we'll add a text box here. And we set this to be around 10, so we'll do the same here. So we'll put this starting point at 10 on the left. And we probably have to make it 18 because of padding. Yep, there we go. So then we got these things aligned, and let's go ahead and increase this to 120 is probably good. And we'll just say this is the title. And we'll make this 16 and bold. And we'll put this, that's fine, in the middle here. Yeah, let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's go with 18. That's good. All right, so we want the title to be a little bit longer. So 120 is a little short. We're gonna go, let's try 200. Maybe 400. That's probably good. And then we've got this one, which is already there, so that's fine. But we want our width to match our gallery header. So we'll say text canvas to width. That way, if we adjust this, the title will adjust automatically as well. Let's go ahead and call this our label title, author articles. Now let's go ahead and copy this and we'll paste it in. And this one is going to be our author. And let's copy it again. And this time will be our status. And I think that looks good. So we'll say label author articles and label status. Okay. And our status definitely doesn't need to be 400. So we'll change this to 250. Should be enough. And let's copy this. And our X is going to be label.x. And I think what's throwing this off is our padding. So let's go ahead and adjust this and fix the padding. Let's get rid of this. And we'll just say that the title of this begins at 10. And then let's get rid of our padding here also. Oops, that's our left that we need to have 10 on. There we go. Now we're lined up. And then we'll make this text, we'll change this from the title to the created by full name. And then we'll change this to text author. There we go. And copy. And then we'll put this right here. So again, our X will be equal to our label status.x, and our width will be the same. All right, so everything's lined up. Now we'll change this to be article status. All right, that looks pretty good. Now what we can do is change our template height here. We could add more information in here, but I think for most authors, they're just interested in the status of it and then the ability to view it. So we're going to go ahead and change our template height. We definitely don't need this much space, and we'll just put it at 42. Yep, that looks good there. Now we don't need this to have quite so much, and I don't typically like this color. It's kind of light, so let's go ahead and change this to this color, make it a little darker there. And let's get rid of our, try 8 to begin with, but let's change our width and our height to be gal dot template height, and we'll go ahead and copy that. And that's going to be our height. There we go. And let's see what that looks like. It's a little big, so let's try changing this to maybe 10. All right, that looks a little bit better. Yep, that'll work. All right, now we want to set our on select here. And let's look at the on select here. And let's go ahead and adjust this. We're going to want to do a reset form just to make sure that everything has been reset on the form. And then we're going to do a set via article. And for this, we want to do a lookup because we want to make sure that we get all the related information and basically a more complete record when we do this. So we're going to look up the articles table, and we're going to look up article is equal to this item dot article. And then we'll go ahead and clear collect because we have our tag combo box. So we need to make sure that we populate that. That'll be our GPL article dot article tags, and then we want to edit form so that we can actually work with it. We could also put it in view only, but I think this is fine. And then we want to navigate to the page, and that'll be our article screen. And we'll do screen transition cover right. All right, let's go ahead and test this out. And it looks like everything worked, but just to be safe, let's go ahead and add a button on here. And let's go through and reset some stuff. We're going to set the article to blank. Make sure that that's actually been put as blank. And then we're going to go ahead and clear our collection. And then we're going to clear our other collection. And then we're going to go ahead and reset the form. Guess I should add that E in there. All right, so let's go ahead and reset everything. So now we got a completely blank form. All right, let's go back to our author articles and give this a try. Yep, everything is populating. So I think we have everything working the way that we want it to. Now we want to test this again in our testing phase. And I'm not necessarily going to do that as part of this video, but all of the things that we're doing in this video, you always want to do a testing phase inside of the live app, just to make sure that you don't have any strange things that work fine here, but don't work fine when you're actually playing the app. Sometimes the studio is a little bit more forgiving on things for some strange reason. I don't know why they would do it that way, but sometimes things work great here that don't work when you're playing the app. But I believe this is going to work just fine the way that we've got this set up. But again, you'd want to do some more testing. So I think we've got everything. We don't necessarily need this button anymore. So let's go ahead and delete that. And let's go back to our author article page here. Let's go ahead and let's change the name of this first, I suppose. And I missed this one. All right, let's add another container. Actually, we've got this one right here. We could just put this in between. And we're going to change our height for this to 2. We'll just make this stand out a little bit. Let's go with extra bold, and there we go. Now let's play this and just kind of make sure. We probably want to make the gap a little bit smaller. So let's select that container again. And instead of a height of 2, let's make it a height of 1. And then we'll play. There we go. Now we've got a good dividing line between our header and our gallery. Yep, that'll work. All right, so that's looking pretty good. All right, I went through and just made a couple of small adjustments to the spacing and padding here. I wanted a little bit of padding between everything, so if I did actually fill this up, that it wouldn't rub right up against the name, or same thing with the name if it's longer. And we can adjust some of this as well, but I think that's starting to look pretty good right there. Now what we need to do is adjust our gallery. So right now we're just seeing every article, but we don't want that. We want to have a filter, and we want to have the created by primary email is equal to Gmail user email. And that'll show just the articles that the individual that's logged into this has created. So we'll just see those. And then we could probably add a sort. And I usually use sort by columns because I might come back in here and add other things to sort. So I just kind of always go with that. But we'll go by our title. And we'll put that in ascending order. There we go. All right, so I made a couple of changes to the design here. I added a couple of columns and just kind of resized things, and then also just added some articles just so I could get a sense for how everything's going to look on the page here. Most of it's pretty minor changes, so I did that kind of off camera here. But I just added the date created, the last modified, and then I did do a little bit of adjustments here. I wanted to have a way to have a processing note. And we're showing the last one, and I'll go ahead and we'll show you how this is. So we're doing a filter basically. I created a table, article processing histories, and that records the status and then a comment that was entered by either the submitter or in the article review process would be added as part of that process as well. So just kind of recording everything. And what I'm doing here is I'm looking at the last one. So I'm putting it in descending order, grabbing the first one, and then we want the submitter comments. So that's all we're really doing with this particular thing here. And then if we go ahead and navigate through here, we'll see that I added a couple of other columns in here. So a recommended additional topic. So if a topic doesn't exist for whatever they're trying to put in there, they can put that information here. Or if the tags don't exist, they can add that information in here as well. So in this case, I said performance or performance discussions might be helpful for tags for this particular article. And then author comments. And these aren't part of the article. This is more just to help the processing team if there's any questions that pop up. In this case, I just demonstrate that it's the last comment. There's another one that was right before this that was, please process. And then when, again, the processing team does their process, they'll put a comment in their box that will be updated as well as part of that status update. So I did just a couple small changes here. This is a multi-lines of text field, and this is just a single line of text field. So not a lot of differences. And then I added a back button just to make the navigation a little bit easier, so we can kind of go back to this page and back and forth. And then, like I said, I just added a couple of articles in here so that we've got something to kind of work with. This example here is to maximize, hey, this is what the character limit looks like. So essentially this is 200 characters. And then maybe I might want to tailor this down and say maybe 150, or maybe it's 100 characters, whatever that article length max title should be. I tend to think 200 is maybe a little bit too long, but I can see some articles having longer titles, but it might become an issue with other aspects of the system as we build it. So maybe we shorten this down to say 150 or maybe 100 characters. I'm not sure, but that's kind of where we're at right now. Now let's go ahead and work on our landing page. So let's come back up here and we'll take a look at our main screen. So now what we want to do is have a way to search what articles are in the tool. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another container. So insert a container, and this one will do a vertical container. And we'll go ahead and this is going to be essentially right below our header container here. Let's move this down. So we'll send this to the back, and this is going to be our container search and screen. And let's go ahead and set our X to 0. And then our Y is going to be right below our header. So it'll be our container header main screen dot Y. And then we'll add our height. And that just makes sure that if we ever move this down, that it'll be still in line with what we want it to be at. You definitely don't need to have the Y because it's unlikely that the design is going to change, but I always like to be thorough if I can. Let's go ahead and go make this parent.width. And I think our height at 200 is probably good. So we'll just leave that for right now. Now let's go ahead and add a text field here. And then we'll go ahead and make this width parent.width. And we'll minus our padding. And we'll go ahead and put this in the center and the middle. And for this, let's go ahead and just say, welcome to the Community Knowledge Hub. And let's go ahead and make this 28 and bold. And then we'll just have to make our height a little bit bigger here. So we'll go to, say, 64. And then I want to change the font color here. So we'll do app.theme.colors.primary. I think we can make this a little bit bigger. So let's try 36. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and change this. All right, that looks good. Now let's go ahead and add another container. So this will be our search container. And for this one, we'll do a horizontal container. And then we'll go ahead and add an input text box. And we'll go ahead and change that background to white. And then we'll add a button. And this will be our search button. And we'll add an icon there. So we've got our search option here. And let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. So we'll say this is going to be, and we'll go ahead and make this 800. And let's go ahead and put this in the center. Let's put a gap of 20 here. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good like that. All right, I went ahead and renamed these quick. Now let's work on our search on select here. And all we need to do is set GBL search text, and we want to trim our text search input dot value just like that. And then we need a navigate function. and we're going to need to create another page for our gallery to actually list out the articles. Now, since we already have an article page set up, we're going to duplicate that. So we're going to copy our author article page here. All right, so now we've got that copied. Let's go ahead and rename this author article 1, and we're going to replace this with article search and replace. And sometimes you do run into these issues here when you do a search and replace like that. I'm going to go ahead and fix that quick. All right, that's fixed now. Now we no longer need to have this filter on it, not like this anyway. So we're just going to bring it all the way back to articles. So then we've got all the articles. There we go. And then we're going to put in our logic for this. And we might not want to necessarily show all the same kind of information. We're going to fix all of that as part of this as well. But first, let's go ahead and put a back button up here. So let's go ahead and insert a back arrow. So we'll do a left. And we'll make the text on this white. And then we'll go ahead and put this over on the right. And we'll change our width for the button here. Let's change this. And we'll just go with 40 for both our height and width. That looks a little bit better. And again, I don't like having this as solid, so we'll change that. And then on select, we'll just make it a back button. That way we have the way to navigate back to the other page very easily. All right, so we've got promotion and what looks like maybe one article. So let's go back to our landing page. And let's go put the navigation on here quick. So we'll say navigate, and we'll say article search, and we'll do upper right. And there we go. So now let's go play. And we're going to do a promotion and hit search. Now what we need to do is apply our filter here. So let's go ahead and take a look at our item property. All right, so what we want to do is an if and an is blank. And if it's blank, we want it to be just a full table, so just articles. But if it's not blank, then we want to do a search, articles, GBL search text, and then we want to search our title field. We can search other fields if we want to, or we can add more fields to search. But for right now, we're just going to search our title field. And there we go. So I searched for promotion, and now we've got our 2 articles that have promotion in the title here. Now let's go ahead and play, and then we'll go back over here. Now let's go ahead and remove everything and hit search. So we get all articles. We might want to take a look at the sort order for both options. Now, if we type in here 2, I think there's probably a 2 in some of these. So we've got 2 in a couple of articles. So it's working exactly the way that we want to. Let's go ahead and go back here, take a look at this again. And let's format our text. And let's go ahead and do a sort by columns here. And we'll go ahead and put it as our name column. And we'll go in ascending order. All right, that looks pretty good. So no matter what, it's going to put it in ascending order now. Now we might want to change it to sort by the number of times it was liked, or, so we can kind of fine tune exactly how this works in the future. But the main purpose right now is we've got a way to search our articles for what we're looking for by the title. Now, again, you could expand this to include the body or the summary, but that works pretty good. So I think now what we got to do is when they find the articles, they definitely won't need the same type of metadata here. They might want to know who wrote it. We're probably going to want to filter so that we're not including submitted. We want to have things that are published. So we might want to modify that. So we'd probably put a filter here, and that'll be article status. is equal to our article status choice dot published. And then we do the same thing here. So we put a filter. Now we can copy this, put that there. And now we've got only the published. And right now we don't have any published, but we have now only published articles. And I'll go through and just adjust a couple of these so that they're actually published. All right, I went through and just removed our created date and then just kind of made everything a little bit bigger, give us a little bit more space so we can have an article summary here. That way they can kind of look and see if this is what they're looking for, as well as just kind of making everything fill up the space a little bit more. So we can really fit in a lot of information here for, again, we've got this set at, I think, 2,000 characters. So this could be quite long. This gives them plenty of room to be able to read a short summary and get a gist for the article before they select anything. Now we have to create, what are they going to see when they go to the actual article page? Right now we've still got this set as our on select from the other gallery. So we're going to have to change this to work with a new page, but we need to actually create that page first. And we'll just go ahead and duplicate our article search page here. All right, now we'll go ahead and change this to our article details and replace everything. And then we can come back over here. Now we don't need the gallery for this, so we can delete that. And if that happens, just go to a different page and then come back to it. And there we go. We also don't need our up here element, so we can delete these. Now we've got a couple containers that we can work with on this page as we build out how we want this article to actually look when they come to this page. Now let's go back to our article search page here and change what happens here. So we don't need much of any of this. We will use this set GBL article. That will still work. We don't need any of this. We can delete that. And we want to navigate to our article details. Oops. Details page. All right, I think that'll work. So let's go ahead and try that out here. And yep, that works perfect for us. And again, we'll need our back button as well. So we'll use that here. All right, so for this first one, let's go ahead and make this one a little bit taller. So we'll say 120 just to get started here. And right now we've got this as a horizontal container. Let's go ahead and change that to vertical. And let's go ahead and add a text field here. And let's go ahead and make this width parent.width. And for our text, this is going to be our title. So we'll say GBL article title. And then we'll take a look at our text. And our text is going to be GBL article title. And let's go ahead and make our height 80. And let's make this 36. Now keep in mind our title could be 200 characters long. And let's go back to our main screen here and play. Let's get rid of this. And it looks like this is our longest title. So let's go ahead and select this one. All right, so we use that one. That's not too bad. Let's go ahead and put some left padding in here, and we'll go with 20, maybe 40. I want to put a little bit more into the area here. Now we're going to go through and add another text field. And for this one, we'll go ahead and make the width parent.width. And for the text, we're going to say by, and then we'll have our GBL article dot created by dot first name. We'll put a space here, and GBL article dot created by dot last name. Now, a lot of times you have to refresh, so let's go back. And again, we'll select this and everything is working correctly there. I don't have my last name in there, so that's why that's going to look a little weird. But for right now, that works fine for us. Now let's go ahead and change this, and we'll say this is going to be 20. And for this one, let's go ahead and change the font color. And it's going to be our app.theme.colors.primary. And we'll change this to bold. There we go. That looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and select both of these. And we have to adjust our parent.width and subtract our 40 that we had in there. There we go. That way we don't go past the edge of this. All right, that's looking not too bad. Now in here, we want to have HTML text. And let's go ahead and set this to a width of parent.width. Fill that entire area, and then we want our height to be the same. So we'll say parent.height, and then our HTML text, and our text is going to be GBL article.body. And again, we could probably put our padding to line it up with our, yeah, there we go. That looks pretty good. So they can scroll through the article. All right, so we're gonna need a little bit more space because we still have to do the attachments. So what we're gonna do is change our names here. So this will be HTML body, details, and then this is our label author article details, and then our article title. Let's go ahead and add another container in here for our attachments. And this one will be a vertical container. All right, so we have our container now. Let's go ahead and call this our container attachments. Now there's a couple different ways you can do this. The easiest way to do this is actually just to use a form. So that's what I'm gonna do here. There is another way you can do this with just using the attachment control, or sometimes you use a gallery to handle this, but using a form is by and large the easiest way to do this with attachment fields. So let's go ahead and just add a form here, and it's going to be our articles. And now we're going to basically just add our attachment field, and we can remove pretty much everything. So let's remove this, and there we go. Now we've got just our attachment field added in here. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. And then for our item property here, we're going to say GBL article. Now let's go ahead and make this the same color. So this will be our black text here. And now let's go ahead and fill this space. So make this .width. We don't need this to be quite so large. So we'll go ahead and say this is going to be, I don't know, 50 is probably sufficient. And let's go ahead and put this, probably don't need our 40 over here. There we go. Everything looks like it's lining up pretty good. Let's make this bold. And we'll make this Arial and bold. All right, so everything's looking better there. Now we want this to be in display mode view. So let's unlock this. Now I only added an attachment to one article. So to test this, let's go back here. I think it was this article. So let's go ahead and there we go. All right, let's go ahead and test this and see if the download works. And there it goes. It did work. So everything is working. Now, the reason why I did this is when you're working with the attachment control, it doesn't always work well with Dataverse downloads. The easiest, by and large, way to do this is exactly the way I just showed you to do this. Hands down, the easiest. There are other ways to do this, and I might do that in a video on how to get this to work. I've done it a couple different ways, whether you use a gallery. Galleries work great for this. You can actually get it to work with the attachment field, just the attachment field. But again, this is by far the easiest approach for this. All right, let's go ahead and adjust things here. So we don't need this container to be quite so large. So we don't need it to be 500. Let's try 250, see what that looks like. And we're actually in the form, so let's go ahead and change the name of this. And our container here, we don't want that. Yeah, actually looks pretty good right there. We might have to make it a little bit bigger. Let's try 175. And let's see, we don't need this to be quite so tall. Yeah, let's shrink this down a little bit. We'll make that maybe 100. And I'll make this 155. All right, that's looking pretty good. And what we're trying to do is just maximize our area here for the article. We don't want this to be shrunken down any more than it needs to be, especially not for an attachments area. It definitely doesn't need to be that large. And I think we can actually shrink this down a little bit more if we make this 0 here and move everything up. Now we can shrink this and make it 155. And we can take a look at our container here. And this is quite a bit higher than it needs to be, so we'll set this to 150. And then we'll look at our container again, and our container could be a little bit smaller, so we'll try 150. And looks like we got a little bit of gray there right under there, so I think that's plenty of room. So again, we've maximized our article area to work with here. All right, so that's not bad for our article page. All right, let's go ahead and go back to our searching page here. Now we're gonna go through and modify this a little bit. Let's just copy this one and paste that in there. Now this is gonna be our total views. And let's go down, change the name of this, label total views. And then we'll copy this one. And we'll go ahead and move this over here. And this will be our text, total views, article search. And let's go ahead and we're going to do a count. Now remember, we created a table for keeping track of our views. So we're going to do count rows, and we're going to filter our article views table based off of article.article, which is basically the GUID, is equal to this item.article. And we'll close everything off. And we've got 0. And let's see, let's go ahead and center this. So put it in the middle here. And let's change our X to be our label total views .x. And we'll copy this and match it up with our width. There we go. Now let's go ahead and make this a little bit smaller. Let's try 100. Oop, too short. Let's go ahead and try 125 and 115. There we go. It's pretty much in the center now. Now we have to actually do the counting here. So how we're going to do this is when they select the article, we're going to count that as a view. So we're going to patch our article views table. We're going to create a new record. So we'll do defaults, article views. And then we'll put in, let's see, user was one of our fields, and that'll be GBL Dataverse user. Now, all this was is a lookup to the users table to figure out the logged in user based off the user record from the users table. And then we have our article, and that will be this item. And then we just close it off and close that. And there we go. So let's go ahead and test this off now. So if I select this one, well, no errors. That's always a positive. Let's go back and see if we got a count now. And we have a total view of 1. So that is working. We're getting our total view counts now for the view table. All right, let's go back to our article that has an attachment here. Now, one of the other things that we wanted on here was the ability to like as well. So let's come up here and let's go ahead and copy this and paste. Now, this one we're going to make a thumbs up. There we go. And let's go ahead and space these out a little bit. So let's select this, put a gap of 10, 20. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Now, what we want this one to do is very similar. We're just going to patch our liked article table. And it's going to be defaults, liked articles. And then again, we have our user. And then again, it'll be our Dataverse user. And then we've got our article. And that'll be GBL article. And let's go ahead and close this. And now we have the ability to like our articles. Now let's go ahead and test this. So we'll click the button. And now what we're going to do, we want this to be the filled in one when it's already been liked. So what we're going to do is on our icon, let's go ahead and move this out of the way for a second. And we're going to say lookup liked articles. And we're going to say user dot primary email equals our UBL. All right, and what we're going to change here is we're going to say not is blank, and then close this up, and that'll give us essentially true or false. And now what we're going to do is say if icon dot thumbs up filled or icon dot thumbs up, and then close that. And now we're showing that it has already been liked by the user. And we can go ahead and copy this, and we can do our tooltip, and we can kind of paste that in here. And instead of this, we're going to say already liked and click the like. And then for our accessible label, we're going to say self.tooltip. And then for our on select, what we can do is we can say, we'll just go ahead and push this down a little bit here and paste this in. And we're going to back this off a little bit here. Delete this and say notify you've already liked this article. Notification type information. And we'll just do 2 seconds for this one. Or we're going to patch. And then let's close this off. All right, so let's take a look at this again here. So we've got, actually, we need to do one more thing. So we need to have our article dot article equal to GBL article dot article. That way it's specific to this article. All right, so that's our on select. Let's go back and check our icon again. And we have to do the same thing here. So and our article dot article equal to GBL article dot article. There we go. Let's go back to the previous page. And let's go ahead and try this one. It's showing liked. Now let's try this one. And it's not. And let's go ahead and like this. And let's go over here. And everything seems to be working. Perfect. Now what we could do is we could add a number of times liked up here as well. But I think for right now, total views is probably sufficient. That's always a modification we could do, though, is add the number of times it was liked. And then I'll give a gauge for whether it was a really liked article or not. Now, one of the other things that you could do is give the option for dislike, but kind of like how YouTube doesn't show you how many people didn't like it. I kind of feel it's the same way. Yes, you can dislike a video on YouTube, and I'm sure somebody can see that that is the case. But for articles, we're just going to focus on that you liked it. And if we click this again, it's going to tell me that I've already done it. So everything's working as far as the functionality that we're looking for the ability to like, as well as to keep track of how many times an article has been viewed. So as we can see here, it's been doing the counter every single time that we've done this. Now we're also recording the user data, so we could also take a look at that and use that in some way as part of our analytics. Maybe we want to see where the employees from which organizations are viewing the articles. Most of that data can be figured out in other ways using Power BI and then pulling in organizational data for the employees. So there's ways to handle that outside of this app. Or you could always put the organizational data into the users table as well using some sort of a data flow. So you got a lot of different options on how you could use this in the future. All right, let's go back to our main screen. And now we're going to focus on kind of doing a little bit more here. Now I did set the background here to white on the bottom. I think that stands out and makes it look a little bit better. And we might do some other things on this as well. But let's go ahead and work on this next. All right, let's go ahead and put in a container. And for this one, we'll do a vertical container. And I'll just move this down here for right now. Now let's go ahead and add a gallery in here. And for this one, we'll do a vertical gallery. And we'll go ahead and set it to articles. Now this is going to be our most viewed articles, is essentially what we're going to put inside of this gallery here. And we don't need an image, so we'll go ahead and get rid of that. And then we'll go ahead and put our text column in here, or modern text control as it is. And this is going to be our title, so that's correct. All right, let's go ahead and copy our font weight here again. And we'll use that here for our font weight. And this will be regular and our bold. All right, now we can get rid of both of these. And we'll give ourselves a little bit of space for this. And we don't necessarily need this line here or the one on the bottom. Let's go ahead and copy this and we'll paste it back in here. And for right now, let's just make this, we'll do approved on, which is blank. This is going to be our number of views. But first we have to create our logic to show this. So let's go ahead and take a look at articles here. Now, first thing we want to do is filter this. So we want to have only our article status, and right here, equal to article status choice dot published. And let's close that off. All right, so that populates this. Now let's go ahead and do the next step. And what we need to do is add columns. And we'll say as a, and the column is going to be called view count. And we got to count rows. And this will be a filter, and it'll be our article views. And then it's going to be article is equal to a article. We can close that and close that and close add columns. Next, what we want to do is sort by columns, and we'll add a comma here, and this will be our view count. We want to do sort order descending, and then we want to limit how many we get as far as our rows. So let's go back. Let's actually just make this a little bit bigger here. And now we want to do first n, and we'll do 5 to start with. I think that's probably going to be a good number of options here. Now we should, if we did things correctly, if we go here, we can make this probably view count. And there we go. Now, if we scroll down, we should have 5 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have our top 5 view counts. Now, obviously, we're only going to have some that have zeros. We could also filter that out also, but I like the idea of having at least 5 at all times. Now, keep in mind, if you were kind of just putting everything in here, until you have articles that are published, this is going to be blank. And then at that point, essentially, nothing's going to have any views. So you're just going to have 5 random zeros for your view count until people actually start clicking on these and searching for articles and your view count starting to populate. This is going to be a little bit blank. If you're setting this up for the first time, you can kind of help that by putting some articles in there, kind of like what we did here, and giving some starting view counts just so that there's some actual information populating into here. Now let's go ahead and change our template size here. And we'll try 40 and see what that looks like. And I think we can go ahead and shrink this down a little bit. And same thing here. Let's go ahead and put this in the center here. Now for both of these, I think we could probably increase our font size a little bit. Let's go to 16, make it just a little bit bigger. All right, I think that will work. Now let's go make this a little bit darker, and let's do our height and width to our template height. We'll copy that and put that in here. And then what we'll do is get rid of this, make it a little bit smaller. And then we'll change our color here to darken it. I think that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and change this. Actually, let's rename these quick. So this would be label view count main screen, label article title main screen. And then we'll put our at label article title main screen dot x plus our label article title dot width. There we go. Now let's go ahead and look over here a little bit. Let's change the name of this gallery to gallery most viewed articles screen. And the container will be container. All right, let's go ahead and insert a text field here. And then let's move this to the top. And this will be our label most viewed articles. Now let's go ahead and change the width on this to dot width. Now we'll make this 20 and bold. And then this will be most viewed articles. And we can go ahead and put a padding on the left here of, I don't know, maybe 10. And let's play that and see what that looks like. All right, that's looking pretty good there. So we have our most view. Yep, that works just perfect, just like that. Now we want to be able to navigate to the page and actually view this article. So let's take a look at our on select here. And we're going to set BL article. And we're going to do a lookup. We'll say articles. And we're going to say article equals this item dot article. And we'll close it off. And then we'll do a navigate. And it'll be article details. All right, now let's go ahead and test this out. Addressing performance, and there's nothing attached. We can go ahead and hit back, and we can see that it is definitely one of the ones that has been liked. Now let's go ahead and move this a little bit. There we go. And we'll find a final location in a few minutes once we get a few more things built on here. All right, let's go ahead and insert a rectangle. Looking at this, I've decided that I do want to have a line. So we're going to put a line at the top here. And we'll put it kind of like right there, maybe. And take a look at our display. We'll put the height at 1. And yeah, that's exactly what we're looking for, is to have a little bit of a spacer here. And let's go ahead and change our color here to app dot theme dot colors dot primary. Let's try lighter 80. And then we'll play and see what that looks like. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good there. Now I've decided I don't actually think that we need to have this in here. So let's just get rid of this and make it regular. And I think for this, we can copy this. And I think what we're going to do is actually replace this. So the modern controls here don't actually have on select. And I'm thinking I don't want to have the buttons here if I don't need them. So I think what we're going to do is use a modern button control. So put this right here. We'll make it the same as this here. And for this one, our text is going to be this item.title. And then we'll put it on the left. And then for our button, we're going to go with transparent. And then on select, we can actually put the navigation and the variable setting in here. So we can get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. And we'll go ahead and put this in here. And that's a button. And let's go ahead and edit this to find our button. There we go. Now let's go ahead and play that and see what it looks like. Yeah, I like that. So now we can get rid of this over here. I think it looks a little bit cleaner that way. Not bad. I think that'll work. All right. Now let's go ahead and copy this. So we figured out kind of what we want for this container and its controls. So let's copy it. And then let's paste it back into here. And let's go ahead and move this over here. And now we're going to do recently updated. So we'll change this to recently updated. And then we'll do our gallery a little bit different. This is not going to need a view count, so we'll get rid of that. And let's go back to just our filter. So we get rid of all of this. And then what we want to do is sort by columns again. And then we're going to do by the modified on. And we want to do sort order descending. And we can close that. And then what we want to do is our first in. And again, we're just going to show the 5. There we go. So we've got our last 5 modified in descending order. So we should have essentially this was the last one's changed. And more than likely, in our case, this is just showing the last one's added because we haven't really changed too many. All right, let's go ahead and change this. And this is going to be a container recently updated. All right, that's looking pretty good. So now we've got our most viewed articles and our recently updated articles. Now, one thing we forgot is our view count. So when we click on this, we're not increasing. So we want to change that. And the easiest way to do that is just hit the search here. And then right here, we're just going to copy this patch. And then we'll go back. And when we click on this, we want to patch also. And then we'll do the same thing here. All right, let's go ahead and test this. So we'll play and we'll do how to process a temporary promotion. So we're looking at the right article and we can see that the view count went up by 1. And if we go ahead and try our temporary promotion versus detail, everything seems to be working and our view count went up by 1. So everything seems to be working with both of these elements. All right, let's go back to our editing screen here now. Now let's work on the bottom portion here. We need to have an ability to create an article and then also for people that have authored articles to be able to view their articles. So we need to add a way for them to do that through some buttons or something. So let's go ahead and I think we're going to grab this container, and copy this, and then paste it. Now we want this one to be at the bottom of the screen. And I don't think we need to have it to be a height of 200. Let's try 100 just to start with here. And we want our Y value to be probably get rid of all this. And I will say parent dot height minus self.height. And that should keep it always at the very bottom of our screen. Now let's go ahead and move this to the very bottom. And then let's go ahead and change this to container controls main screen. And we don't need any of this for right now. All right, so now we've just got kind of a clean, empty container to work with. Let's go ahead and add a button. And for this, we're going to put it in the middle. And let's take a look at our button here. So this is going to be submit an article. And let's copy this and paste. Oh, we're going to have to change our container to horizontal. I think will probably look better. I'll put a gap of 20. And let's take a look at both of these. So this one will be our manage submitted articles. And let's go ahead and increase both of the buttons on this to maybe 200. And then we'll increase our height to 64, see what that looks like. And that's looking pretty good. And let's go to border radius on these buttons. Let's try 10. Yeah, a little bit of a curve. That's not too bad. I think that looks pretty good. Now for submit an article, all we need to do is take a look at our author articles here. And we've got this. We'll just go ahead and copy this. Oops. So we'll copy all of this. And then we'll go back to our main screen. And for submit an article, the on select, that'll be kind of our start point. So we want to make sure that we've reset the form. We want to set GPL article to blank. We want to clear of all of our collections. We want to create a new form. And we want to navigate to this page here. So let's go ahead and test that. Yep, and that worked fine. So let's go back. So submit an article is working. Now an icon for an article, and we could go with the add, or we could make it look like a document. Either one of those probably works well. And then for manage, I think we'll probably just go with the settings option. So if we scroll down here, we should see settings, and that kind of indicates the manage portion of this. All right, I think that looks pretty good for our buttons. Now for our manage submitted articles, we want to make sure that this one just needs to navigate us to the page for our author articles. And we'll do screen transition for the right. So if we click this, it should take us to our page here, and the gallery controls what the person sees. Now for this one, we need to have a back button again. So let's go ahead and copy our back button from one of our other screens here. Let's go to our main screen. Here we've got a back button. Let's copy that. And we'll go back, manage our articles, and go ahead and put this up here. And we'll put this over on the right. That way we're just kind of matching up with how everything's set up in the app here. All right, so that works for this, but we don't want them to see this unless they have articles that they need to manage. So let's go to our visibility here. So what we're gonna do is a filter to our article table, and it's gonna be based off our created by dot primary email is equal to our GPL user email. And what we want to do is count rows. And then what we want to do is if our count rows is greater than 0, then true, otherwise false. So because I've created articles, I can see this button. And in order to see this button, you have to create an article. So essentially this will work to manage who can see this particular button as part of this process. Now we might want to move the button left or right, depending on kind of what we want. I think center looks good though. I think we'll keep it there just for now. But let's go ahead and hit the play button and see how everything's looking for us. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Now I do want to adjust the drop shadow. Most of the time the drop shadow is towards the bottom. So in order to get a drop shadow effect here, we need to go a little bit higher. Let's try bold. And let's play and see what that looks like. So that gives us a little bit of a drop shadow up on the top here. And we still get a little bit on the bottom, but we're really looking for kind of the same type of a drop shadow as what we've got on the top, but on the top of this container here. So I think that looks pretty good. Gives it a little bit of a standoff from everything else on the page here. And we might do kind of the same thing with our containers here also, but we've got a couple of things I want to build for this area here. So let's do that first. Now we don't need these containers to be quite so big. So let's go ahead and adjust both of these. So we can take our height and let's try 275 and see how that looks. All right, I think that looks pretty good actually. And we can go ahead and move the height up a little bit. So instead of 352, let's try 325. All right, I think that looks good. Now let's go ahead and copy both of these. And then we're going to paste it in our main screen. And then we'll go ahead and move this down to, say, 500. See where that puts us. We can go a little bit further down. So let's try 750. Oop, too far. There we go. And that looks good. Now this one is at 112. So we'll put this one over at 112 just to get everything kind of aligned here. And then this one is at 969. All right, so now we've got everything on our screen here. Now for this one, we're going to change this to be our newest articles. So we're going to say new this month. And then we're going to adjust our formula here. So to adjust this, what we're going to do, we have a couple options. If we want to keep it at 5, then we keep this the way that it is for our first N with our 5. If we want to actually show everything this month, we have to realize that this might be much longer than 5. So you could have potentially, especially when you're first setting this up here, a lot of stuff added right here. So there's kind of a give and take on how you might want to do this. And actually, I think what we'll do is say, I think we'll just call it newest, which implies that it might not necessarily be all of them. And that'll allow us to limit this to just 5. And now what we need to do is just adjust this. And we're going to say, and created on is greater than or equal to date, year, month, today, and 1. And instead of modified on, it's going to be created on. And let's just look over our code here. I think something's missing here. And this is going to be equal. Well, I think I see where I missed this. Okay, there we go. Yep, that is looking correct. So based on the last 5 is essentially what we're going to show here for our newest this month. I think that works. Now this one we're going to do featured articles. Because remember we added the option for featured to be possible here. Now for this one we're just going to go ahead and copy this and put that in here. And we'll say essentially this, but we're going to add our featured is equal to true. And right now we don't have any articles that are featured, and it probably doesn't matter between modified or created, but we do want to limit it to 5 again, because what if we have selected more than 5? So we'll also try to say top 5 featured articles. All right, now I'm going to go through and set a couple of articles as featured so we can see what this looks like. All right, I went and toggled a couple of articles to featured. Now in this case, I went with less than 5, just so we could see, maybe we don't want to say top 5, we want to just say top featured. That way, if we don't have 5, we aren't necessarily going to exceed that. This will never exceed 5, but at least now it is not going to be confusing if they only see 1, 2, 3, or 4 and it says top featured. So I think that looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this. Yeah, that looks not bad. Now, again, I think I might want to put these with a border a little bit more than what it has right now. So let's go ahead and select our containers. And let's try moving it up a little bit. Let's try regular once, see what that looks like. Yeah, that actually looks pretty good, but let's see what it looks like with more. That is a more better approach at this point. So let's try that. So looks like we have too many things selected. I don't want the header here. Let's get rid of this one. And let's try extra bold. Ooh, that's too much. So let's try bold. I think semi-bold might be pretty good. Let's see. Yeah, I think semi-bold looks pretty good. All right, so let's go ahead. We have how to process a temporary. Let's look for one. Let's try this one. So this one should result in this increasing if we select it. So it's not currently there. Let's try this one. It hasn't been liked. And if we go back, now we've got that article here. So everything is working the way that it's supposed to. All right, we're definitely coming along. I think our landing page is pretty much done now. Let's go back into this mode here. All right, now what we need is an admin page. And let's go ahead and go to this screen here. I think we'll just duplicate this screen. All right, let's go ahead and copy this and replace that. And we'll call it an admin screen. All right, let's go back here. Now our admin screen doesn't obviously need all this stuff, so we can go ahead and delete a lot of this. Let's just delete this. And that's the bulk of everything. Let's go to this screen and then head back over here. Now we don't need these buttons, so let's go delete these two here. All right, so we've got 2 containers. That'll work pretty good for what we're trying to do here. And we don't need this one, so let's go ahead and delete this. All right, so we got 1 container. Let's go back to our main screen. We want to try to keep our buttons around the same size. So we're going to copy this one and we'll use that in here. Go ahead and paste that in. And then we've got our submit an article. But I do want another container for the top. So I guess we should have kept one. Let's go ahead and put in a horizontal container is probably fine. And move this to the top. Container, admin menu screen. And we'll just add some text in here. And let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. And we'll say admin options, maybe 20. And probably make it a little bit bigger. It's gonna be 5. And we'll make it bold. Let's go ahead and change this to flexible. And I'll make this 42. And put everything in the center. And let's go ahead and make this a little bit smaller. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. Now, what do we need to do here? The admins need to review all of the different articles that are there. So we'll do article review. All right. Now, we only need to navigate for the most part. So we're going to navigate author articles page. All right. So when we're on this page, right now we're listing all of the articles that each of the authors have to review. Now, if we take a look at this, this works great. But what we need to do is for an admin, we want them to see something a little bit different. But before we do anything here, we should probably add it to our app on start to determine if the user is an actual admin. So if we come up here, what we need to do is set our GBL user role. And we want it to be the first. And we want to filter our I call it Knowledge Hub permissions. We want to say user.primary email is equal to GBL user email. And we got to close these out. And it looks like I got a typo here, so let's get rid of that. And what we want to do is also add an if error. Our set got deleted there. And then we'll add a comma. And we'll say if it's a error, we'll say JBL user role and close that. All right, I think that looks good. Now what we need to do is set is user admin, and we'll do a cols JBL user role dot admin equals true or false, and then close these out. There we go, like that. Now let's go ahead and run our on start. And we can test this with a text box. So we'll just grab a text box here and we'll put it over here and we'll just say is user admin. It says false. Let's run our on start again. I guess it helps if I put myself in the table. So let's try running the on start again here. And there we go. So I just needed to add myself to the table and then it would work. I haven't actually created the form for adding anybody to that table yet. Now we can have a way to determine if the user is an admin. Now you could create a whole bunch of different roles. I only added one for admin, but you could have essentially admin is for maintaining the actual tool. And then you've got another role that is for processing articles. So you could have multiple different roles with this approach. And essentially this is what the table looks like. Again, a very basic table. This is going to be set from the app. So we're going to set the name to the full name. And then when they pick the user, they can pick the roles. And you would just add more roles here based off how you want to break this down. Again, I'm just going to keep the admin for simplicity for this, but you could have multiple roles. All right, so we're set up now. We have a way to determine if the user is an admin. Let's go back to our main screen. Now, let's go ahead and actually we're going to copy a button from one of these other screens here. We'll copy this one here and then come back here. And let's go ahead and add this button in here. Move this over to our right. And this is going to be an admin. And we're just going to call it a little settings icon down here. There we go. And yep, that'll look good. Now for our visibility, we only want our admins to see this. So we're going to go to visible and we're going to say is user admin. And I should be able to see it now because I'm an admin. And on select of this, we're going to take us to the page. So we'll navigate to our admin screen. All right, let's go ahead and test that out. So now we have a way to get into our admin screen here. Let's go ahead and get rid of that border there. And we've got a way to get to our article review page. Now for here, we have a way to decide is the user admin and what should they see if they're an admin. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if is user admin. And if they are, we want to copy this, but we're going to make some changes to this. And we're going to say a comma here, and then we're going to close this off. So for the first one, I'm going to change this. So we don't want a created by anymore. We actually just want a status probably. We want them to be able to process everything that isn't already published. So we're going to say article status is equal to article status choice submitted. And then we're going to go ahead and copy this. And we're going to say or, and instead of submitted, we're going to say under review. And we're going to add some more options here. And instead of submitted, we're going to change this one to archived. And let's just make sure there isn't anything else we want to add here. So we have, well, let's put returned by admin. And basically everything except published. So I think we have everything. Returned by admin, under review, probably approved. That way we can publish it. So we'll put approved in here also. So now we've got our submitted, under review, archived, returned to admin, and are approved. Now in this case, we've only got one that I didn't put as a published, so that's the only one that we can process. But everything will eventually show up in here. I'm not sure what the best sort order is going to be for this. Probably not name. It's probably going to be, and we'll do it for this one up here, probably our modified. And we probably want to do it in, yeah, ascending probably makes sense. That will be our oldest one to work on. Okay, so we can adjust this later once we actually have some articles in here, but I think that works for now. Let's go ahead and confirm that this looks good. So we're essentially setting the article, and yeah, that looks all good for us. Now let's go into the article here. Now, as an admin, we don't want author comments like this. So we're going to say if is user admin, and if they are, then we'll have this if not. But if they are, we want it to say admin comments to author. There we go. So now it'll say admin comments to author, and they can put their comments in here. Now, if we wanted to keep these only for the author, we just need to add another column for the admin to put comments in here, and then we'd have to rework a couple of things as far as the design of this. But for our purposes, I think this is going to be fine. It's going to just have whoever had the last comment is going to be what is in this box here. I think that works. Now, let's go back to our form here. Now, we want to go ahead and add our other options here. So we want the approved by. Let's go ahead and shrink this, and we have our approved by now. Now we already have the article status, and right now the visibility is set to false. We want it to be visible for is the user an admin. And again, we're setting that right now as a default of submitted. But what we want to do is take a look at our update. We want to change this. We want to say if is the user admin, and let's make this a little bit bigger again. And if it is, then we actually want to use our data card value. And so we're going to say data card value for dot selected, and we're going to close this out like that. That's the reason why I keep these in here, is that it makes it a lot easier to remember what we need to put in here. So there we go. Now the approved by, we want to do something very similar. We need to unlock this first. And let's look at our update property here. Now what we want to do, we'll put this down here again, and we want to say if is user admin, and if they are, then we want to use our GBL Dataverse user. Otherwise, we want to do our selected, which will be blank because they can't select it. And what we want to do is for our approved by, make sure that the visibility is blank or is user admin, just like this. Now, we also want them to be required if is user is admin. And same thing over here, is user is admin. So the admin, when they come in here, will be able to see both of these and then actually make changes to both of these. Now we could move them up in the order also if we wanted to. In this case, the find items, let's go ahead and change this to select person. We'll say approver. And also we got to change that to white. There, now we've got this set up right. Now in the case of the approved by, I actually don't need to make this required now that I think about it. So what we could do is we're going to make this false. And because we set the update property the way that we did, it's automatically going to use the logged in user's name. So they don't even have to see this now that we think about this. So let's go ahead and make the visibility false again. That way, the only thing that the logged in person needs to do is fill out the comments here, and that's kind of an option, and then actually change the status. But let's go ahead and test this just to kind of confirm. So let's go play. Now let's go ahead and change this to under review and hit submit. All right, so the status is under review. Oh, looks like it's still processing. Submitted successfully. Now, if we hit the back button, we'll see that it's under review. Now, we don't necessarily need all of this information for each time. Let's go ahead and try this again here. And let's go ahead and change this as admin comments. And now what we're going to do is put it into the approved option here and hit submit. And successfully submitted. Now let's hit the back button here. And we'll see that we got our admin comments with a status of approved. So everything is working as expected. Now we might want to, like I said, consider what does the admin need to see for this information here. I tend to think this is probably sufficient, but we could always adjust this should an admin or somebody need different information. So it is definitely adjustable. All right, let's go back into here for a second. And I want to take a look at our submit form. That looks good. But let's just do a quick look on our on success. And let's make this a little bit bigger. So we have this patch statement here. And what we need to do is change our status that's going to our patch table for article processing history so that it matches the correct status. So all we need to do is add an if statement here. So we'll say if is user admin, and for true, they'll have this portion here. So this will be our data card value for.selected.value, or it'll be submitted. Because every time that the author submits, it's always going to be submitted. But when it's the admin, we want it to be whatever they selected here. All right, let's go ahead and scroll this up a little bit and give that a try. So we're going to actually put this back to submitted. Well, actually under review, and try it. So hit submit. And everything was successful. Now let's actually go look at our table and confirm that that worked. And if we look at our table, we can see that under review is the last one with the admin comments here. Now I didn't change the admin comments, so I just kind of repeated that. Now you have the option to create a view that shows the history of all of this as well. We're not going to do that as part of this video, but you have all of this information, so you could actually display this information in the screen at some place, maybe as a pop-up. There's a lot of different ways you could do this, but we have this information, so you could display this to the user or the admin so you can see the history of the approval process. All right, let's go ahead and go back to our screen here. Now that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and collapse this a little bit so we can work with this a little bit easier here. So we're going to do our admin user screen now. And for that one, let's see which one makes the most sense to copy. That's actually a little bit bigger than I would have expected, so we should probably adjust that quick. But 36 is a little too big. Let's try 32. And let's try 8. There we go. I'm glad we saw that. That's probably our longest title here. All right, so we have this screen here, and that's probably fine. We could just use this one. If we duplicate this, and let's go ahead and copy this. And again, we'll replace that with our permission center. And replace. All right, so now we've got our permission center here. Now we don't need, let's see, what don't we need here? Let's get rid of the form. And we probably don't need either of these items. We're gonna need a couple of containers, so we probably keep these on here. Get rid of this. And then we've got our header. Now let's go to a different page and come back here. All right, so that's looking good. We don't need this. We probably need our back button, so we'll leave that there. All right, so we got a whole bunch of different containers here. We don't necessarily need this many containers, but we will need some. So let's go ahead and get rid of this one and this one. So we've got one container here. And for this one, let's go ahead and set this as a horizontal container. And let's move this up to make it a little bit easier. So put that to the front. All right, now we're just working with this one container here. And it is our permissions. Actually, this was the one we got to do a horizontal for. And let's go ahead and add another container in here. And it'll be a vertical container. All right, so now we've got our two containers. And for this one, we're going to do a vertical also. So we're going to have this essentially as our permission center. So one side is going to be a gallery of all of our users, and then the right side is going to be a form. So that's kind of the design that we're going for here. And we'll go ahead and say, oh, we'll just put this one over here for right now. And this will be our container. User permissions, gallery side, and container form permissions center form side. All right, now we need another container, and this is going to be our header for this gallery. And then let's add another container, and this is going to be for our gallery. So this is going to be our container gallery header. Permission center, and this one's going to be our gallery. And this one we will get rid of the lines for, and we'll go ahead and make this 42 and get rid of the lines here. All right, now on this side, we need a container also, and this will be for our form header. And then we'll need another container for the form. And we'll do vertical for that. All right, so this should be our container form buttons. And then this one is going to be our container form permission center. All right, so now we've got all the pieces. Let's start formatting things a little bit. And again, this would be 42 and there. Okay. Now on here, what we need are some text options. So this one will be, I don't know, we'll probably set this to 200. And this is going to be our username. Let's go ahead and copy this and paste. And this is going to be our admin. And this one definitely doesn't need to be quite so big. So we'll set this to 100 for right now. And it'll probably get smaller eventually. And I really think that's probably all we need. Let's go ahead and make these both bold, and we'll set these to 16 and put them in the middle. Now let's go ahead and add a gallery. And this will be our permissions. And we can get rid of this. Insert a text field. Oops. Insert a text field here. And we probably need to put this in left. We'll do 10. And then for this container here, we'll get rid of our left. There we go. And then this will be starting at our 10 position here. So everything's aligned. That works. Now we can get rid of, actually, let's make this bold here. So let's copy our font weight. And we'll paste that into here. And this will be bold and regular. All right. Now we can get rid of this and this. And then we're going to insert a toggle. And we'll go ahead and set the X of this to be, oh, I forgot to name these. So this is our label, username, center, header. Okay. Now for this, we'll go ahead and set the X to label admin.x. And then same thing for this one. Oh, we don't have to worry about the X there, but we do want the width to match. So we'll say label username and permission center dot width. Now for this one, we're going to go ahead and set the width to this to the same. All right, let's go ahead and make this a little bit. There we go. And now we're going to take a look at our checked. And for this, we want it to be item.admin. All right. Now let's make this a little bit wider here. So we'll say 150. And now let's take a look at our label. And for this, we want to be, look at display. Here we go. Label. We want this to be if this item.admin. We want true. We want yes. Otherwise, we want no. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and adjust this here a little bit. So we want this to be 40, I think is what we've been doing for most things. And then I'm dropping this to 8. And I'm making this darker. All right. Now for this gallery, we can go ahead and change the template size. We'll go with 40. And let's go ahead and put this in the middle so it lines up a little bit better here. All right, so on select, what do we want to have happen here? So we'll say update context. And we'll say local user selected permissions. And say this item, close it out. And then we want to do edit form, but we haven't created that yet. So we'll just leave it like this. And then we want to say update context. And we want to say local form visible. And we'll say true and close this out. And it doesn't like that, but we're going to put the form in here anyway. So let's just do that quick. So we've got our form and knowledge hub permissions. All right, let's go ahead and change the name of this. So this will be our form user permissions, permission center. All right, now we can select that here. Perfect. Now we'll go ahead and copy this and put that into the items property over here. There we go. Now up here, we want to go ahead and copy this button after I get rid of this border. Actually, I kind of like the idea of using other buttons. So let's use this button design here. And let's go ahead and move this over to the right. And we'll put a gap of 20. And for this button, we'll go ahead and say save. And our save option here. And then let's go ahead and copy and paste. And this will just be cancel. And we'll go ahead and put an X in here for dismiss. All right, that works for me. Now, what do we need here? We need this, this. We don't need that, that, this, or this. And we do need our user field. And let's go ahead and put this down here, user up on top, and then we've got our admin. Now for this one, let's go ahead and kind of continue our, let's actually select all of these. So let's go down here, let's select this one, and this one, and unlock them. There we go. That actually did unlock them. So we can select this one here and change the placeholder text. Select user. And let's go ahead and make this white right away. And then for this one, we'll say select yes or no. Change it to white. And for here, same thing, we'll change this to white. Now for this one, all we're going to do is change our update property. And we're going to move this down and we're going to say, let's scroll down here. It's going to be our data card value 20.selected.full name. There we go. Now we want to make this required. And we want to make this required. Oops. Peru. Okay. So now we've got those two required and we don't need this much space. All right, so let's go change this width and we want to have a flexible width. And actually, that's probably all the space that we need. We could add more permissions here, so we want to give ourselves the ability to add as many permissions as might be necessary. Now let's go ahead and change these to, actually we can select all three of them. Save ourselves a few seconds here. And we want to make it parent.width. There we go. I think that works. All right, now let's go ahead and copy this and paste it in here. And let's see, our X, we'll move it over a little bit. So we'll multiply it by 2. Oops. And let's give it a little bit more space. So we'll double this. There we go. Now this is going to be our trash. And our onSelect for this is going to be remove. And this item. All right, so that should delete now. Now we also want to have an add button. So let's go ahead and copy this. And we're going to paste it in this container here. And it's going to have a whole bunch of issues. And we want this to be blank. And then we don't need edit form. We want to make it a new form. And then, all right, I think that works for that. Let's take a look at our other errors here. We can get rid of this now. And we can get rid of this. And let's change the icon to the add button here. All right, so that is working. Now let's take a look at our save button here. We want this to be submit form, form permission center, just like that. And for our cancel button, we want this to be reset form, form, there we go. And then we also want to update context, form visible. We want this to be false. And then we want to do another update context. And this is going to be this one set to blank. And close there. All right. Those three look good for our cancel onSelect. Now let's go ahead and change the names here. So this is our save button. So we'll say button save permission center. And this is our button cancel permission center. All right. Now let's take a look at our form here. And our on success, we want this to be update context. Oops. And it'll be self.submit. Close this. And we're going to edit our form. And then we want to do a notification. Successfully saved and notification. We have 3 seconds. We'll hold that for. All right. Now for our item property, we want it to be that location user selected permissions. Okay. I think we have everything. Let's go ahead and hit play here. Actually, one more thing. So we've selected this one. Now for our choices, we actually need to change this to make it work correctly. All right, I went and pasted this in, and this is pretty much what I've been using. And for the most part, this has been working for most of my apps. But essentially, this allows for searching when it's more than 500 people in your organization. And let's go ahead and drag this up. So let's go ahead and play the app now and hit add. I'm the only user in this organization, so I'm going to find myself. And there I am. And I'm going to go ahead and set no since we're got a yes. And let's go ahead and test this. So it creates it, no. And if we select this, we'll see that the name did change. So it's been saved. And everything else looks like it's working correctly here. Now let's go ahead and hit cancel. Oh, we forgot to make this not invisible. Let's hit add again here. So we got to find the gallery for this. And this is what we're using, that local variable that we created. So we'll set this to local form visible. And if we hit cancel, it should go away. So now we can hit the add button and it'll be there. So everything seems to be working the way that we want it to. Now let's go back to our admin page here. And we got to add this to our admin center. So where is our admin screen here? And we'll go ahead and copy this, paste this, and this will be our mission center. And we'll just find a person icon down here. There we go, that works. And for this one, we got to navigate to our permission center, just like that. And let's go ahead and test it. Now, we might want to do is, if we take a look at our update on select here, let's copy this one. And in the page on visible, we're going to go ahead and paste this in there. And by default, we're going to say false. So when we come back over here and we come in here, it'll be collapsed down for us. Let's test our delete button here. We don't need myself in here twice to confuse things. There we go. And we can't make it so that that can't happen. But since I'm the only user here, I tend to leave myself in this as well. But yep, everything appears to be working for our permission center. Now I want this one to actually be above here. And this is going to be our button user permissions. And this will be our button article review. All right. Now we need a back button. So let's go here. Now let's copy this and go back to our admin screen here and paste this in here. Now let's go ahead and move this over to the right. All right, let's go back to our main screen now and save. And let's go ahead and publish. All right, so let's test things out here. So we have our admin button here. It'll take us here. We can take a look at our permission center. We can get back here. We can do article review. We can come back over here and we can get back to our main screen. We can manage our submitted articles. I'm an admin, so I'm currently seeing everything. Now this is where multiple roles could be helpful. Maybe you're an admin, but you're also a submitter of articles. So this would cause a conflict. Now we could always put a toggle up here so you can toggle between seeing everything that you created and your admin requirements. So that's an option. And then we've got submit an article, and we can submit our article. And if we hit the back button here, everything is working as expected. So I think we're pretty much done with the build of this app. Now there's a lot of things you could still continue to add in here. We have a liked article button. We could put that in here and we could actually substitute. So if we, for example, we don't have a lot of new items, what we could do is we could put the most liked thing in here, and that would be basically the exact same setup that we have here. We would just recreate this approach here, and then we could have the most liked articles here. Same thing with top featured, although this is much easier to control. You can at random identify which ones you want to have as focused. And we might want to create a specific page where we could maybe in a table switch and identify which ones we want to have focused and kind of alternate between the different articles. Recently updated, as long as we're making updates to the articles, this should be pretty easy for this to continue to be updated. But I think we're pretty much it. Again, a lot of things we could put on the admin page here. This is just basic bare minimum things that we need to run this application. But yeah, that is how you create a community knowledge hub. Now, again, this could be for any type of community of practice or a specific part of your organization. Like in this case, we kind of built this around the idea of HR. And we could change the name and say, welcome to the HR Community Knowledge Hub to match whichever organization we're in. So a lot of flexibility, a lot of different things you can do with this app. Now, if you like this kind of content, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. It really does help the channel grow. And it takes a long time to build these apps. So if you find value in it, I would really appreciate if you support the channel with just liking and subscribing to it. You can also support the channel through tips. There's a tip link inside of the description of the video. I'm going to give that a try over, say, doing memberships. That's the other approach that a lot of people do, is memberships to the channels. I'm going to go ahead and use the tip option and see how that works. And then I might migrate over to the membership option to get access to everything on here. And then maybe I would give different things you can get as part of that. But those things really do help this channel grow. All right, that's it for today. Until next time.